Right, good morning again. It's Tuesday, April the 11th, 2023. Good morning to all my Year 2 students. I hope you're all having a fantastic Easter break. Today's topic is on psychiatric injury or nervous shock in the tort of law. If we start with the definition, psychiatric injury is simply any mental injury that is more than just grief or sorrow in that sense, and it has to be medically recognized. Right, so if we have a look at some basic cases that go with psychiatric injury or nervous shock, you've got the case of Delew and White, and this is a start on building up the principles of nervous shock and who can be a potential claimant. So Delew and White is a case where the claimant witnessed a horse and van crash into their public house where they were working, and they were able to claim for nervous shock as it was at the time. The case of Hambrook and Stoke is another case where the claimant was able to claim compensation because of hearing that a runaway truck or horse and cart had crashed where she just left her children. So that's another case of where the claimant was successful in claiming for nervous shock or psychiatric injury. Borhill and Young, as you might have already come across, you would remember that case, and this time based on proximity, even though the claimant did suffer some psychiatric injury, she wasn't able to claim because she wasn't proximate enough to the incident. The case that did succeed, however, is McLaughlin and O'Brien, where the claimant saw her family in an untreated state after visiting them in hospital, and she was able to claim. So I think the key point here is whenever there's an instant of psychiatric injury or nervous shock, you have to categorize the claimant in different categories. So the most obvious one is the claimant a primary victim? Who is a primary victim? Well, simply a primary victim is somebody who is actually at the scene at the time that the event happens and suffers nervous shock or psychiatric injury. Most of the time their claims may be successful if they can prove their case on a balance of probabilities. Now, the next point to appreciate is secondary victims. So a secondary victim is somebody who arrives immediately after a horrific event, a traumatic event, and witnesses with their own unaided senses an incident that causes them nervous shock, and they witness somebody who's gone through a traumatic situation because they have close ties of love and affection. That's a bit of a long-winded way of going about it, but a secondary victim is somebody who may be able to claim compensation. Now, I think if you get a question on a nervous shock or psychiatric injury, the key case to remember is the case of Alcock and South Yorkshire, the Chief Constable. I think you've got to remember that the claimant arrived immediately after the event, that the claimant had close ties of love and affection, and also that the claimant witnessed the event with their own unaided senses. So if they can prove all those points, then as a secondary victim you're likely to be able to claim some form of compensation. Right, now the next point to appreciate is to do with bystanders, and again, if they fit into the Alcock criteria, they may be able to claim. Read the case of Chadwick and British Railway Board, which proves that as a rescuer you may be able to claim compensation. Bystanders may not be able to claim compensation unless they again fit into the Alcock criteria, and again you've also got property owners, TIER and British Gas, which shows that sometimes you may be able to claim compensation. Now, sometimes psychiatric injury may occur slowly, and again depending on whether you can prove your case or not. The question as to whether your psychiatric injury arose straight away or whether it arose slowly or gradually depends on how well you can prove your case. So in a nutshell, I'm hitting 5 minutes now, so in a nutshell, I think the key point to appreciate is that always distinguish, apart from knowing the definition of psychiatric injury, nervous shock, make sure you can categorize the claimant as either a primary victim, a secondary victim, a rescuer, a bystander, a property owner, and so on. And don't forget the Alcock criteria. Right, that's a quick summary of psychiatric injury and nervous shock. Keep working hard. Work is still on Microsoft Teams, so enjoy the rest of your holiday, but please bear in mind that when we get back on the 17th of April 2023, you've got your exams not too far away. Good morning, and hopefully I shall see you possibly in a different setting, not with all this lovely woodland behind me and nobody around, so it might be a bit of a boring background, but never mind. Anyway, good morning.